I'd like to open up the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The motion approval of the records, Council Gould. This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9 and being taped by PBD Access TV and also being recorded by our City Council stenographer. First up on the agenda, hearings. 4A, if the City Clerk will read the notice, please. This is a recessed from August 17, 2017, so no need to read it. I'm going to turn over to Councilman again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I believe it's been continued, so I do think we need to open the hearing.
We'll continue?
Continued,
we'll,
yeah.
We'll read. Thank you.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City PBD will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday evening, September 14, 2017, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, PBD, Mass, on the application from Metro Bowl, Inc., 63 Foster Street, PBD, Mass, requesting an entertainment license to allow for television and digital internet music and live entertainment, specifically karaoke, DJ, and live music, limited to a maximum of 2 performers at said 63 Foster Street, PBD, Mass. PBD City Council, Councilor Joel D. Sasslaw, City Council President.
Thank you. Attorney Kelty.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney with offices at 40 Lowell Street in Peabody, Massachusetts. And I appear this evening on behalf of Bob Leo, who is Metro Bowl, Inc., doing business in this city for well over 20 years. And he has recently gained approval of an all-alcohol liquor license. And he has removed 6 or 8 alleys and built out a restaurant, which is a full-service restaurant, and is getting quite great reviews. So we're seeking tonight an entertainment license that would allow for television and digital internet music and live entertainment, specifically karaoke, DJ, and live music, limited to a maximum of 2 performers. In his application, Mr. Leo presented that he seeks 1 to 2 performers, no more than 2, 1 to 2 instruments, and 1 amplifier. We have, Mr. Leo has met directly with Councilor McGinn and with several of his neighbors, and I believe that they have come to an accommodation with respect to the hours of operation. And I think that I would suggest that I would complete my suggestion, my remarks, and turn it over to Councilor McGinn, who can explain what happened with respect to the hours of operation.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to ask anybody like to speak in favor of the applicant. Would anybody like to speak in favor of the applicant? Please come, state your name, address for the record.
Hi, Sheila Guiney, 15 Franklin Street.
Hi, Larry Compiano, 14 Franklin Street.
You can actually state your name and then talk about why you're in favor of the applicant. Oh, okay, thank you.
Hi, Antonio Campos, 32 Chestnut Street.
Jose Pinto, 28 Chestnut Street. And we just prepared something, given some of the meetings that we've had with the Leo family and a couple of the councilors. So, as I mentioned, my name is Jose Pinto. I own the property at 28 Chestnut Street, and I've been asked to read this letter from some of the local neighbors that own property and or live near the Metro Bowl place of business. So together, we're here tonight, and we agreed to some of all the information in the following statements that I'm going to be about to read, including these individuals here. Upon notification of a public hearing regarding the entertainment license at the Metro Bowl place of business, many local neighbors from Seamount Road, Coolidge Road, Chestnut Street Extension, Franklin Street, and Chestnut Street became quite concerned. Councillor Peter McGinn, upon knowledge of our concerns, set up a neighborhood meeting at the Metro Bowl property with the Leo family and the owners of Metro Bowl. This meeting included Bob Leo Jr., Councillor McGinn, and Councillor Charest, and 9 local neighbors that were able to attend the meeting on short notice. Many past experiences and future concerns were discussed regarding the local outdoor activities of Metro Bowl patrons and their impact on the neighborhood. Some of the more common and future concerns are those that would affect the quality of life here for the local neighborhood. Those concerns include late night noise from patrons smoking with loud talking outside, the late night resetting of car alarms, and other car and conversation noises upon leaving the Metro Bowl place of business late at night. These concerns were heard by the Leo family and the ward councilors. Plans have been discussed with the Leo family and the ward councilors and the local neighbors to help lessen the late night impact to the neighborhood. The local neighborhood looks forward to continued discussion with the Leo family and the ward councilors as needed. As improvements take place for local businesses, we, the neighbors, obviously would like to continue to be involved as needed regarding the quality of life of those individuals that either live or own property in this area. So, we, the neighborhood, or these individuals here, including myself, respectfully request that the proposed conditions set forth by Councillor McGinn be accepted, and I'm sure you'll state those conditions. So those were kind of the prepared remarks that we had. I will say that we're not here to oppose anything. We're just here to voice some concern. And quite honestly, our meetings with the Leo family and with Bob Leo have been really great. They've been very receptive to our concerns. Some of them were even related to parking, which I know he's actually has the additional parking, has put up a sign for the patrons to inform them that the parking is there and available, which I think that was part of our concern. So again, I just want to highlight and reiterate that we're not here to oppose it, but just to voice some concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak in opposition of the applicant this evening? Would anybody like to speak in opposition? Being none, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say I think this is a very desirable situation. We've got an applicant who has invested in his downtown business, and is interested in seeing a reasonable return on that investment, and we hope that he does. And I think the neighbors hope that he does. They intend to offer some entertainment occasionally in their new restaurant facility, and I think the restaurant adds just another feature to the downtown, which is great. It's the type of activity we're trying to encourage. On the other hand, the neighbors, they're very engaged, and understandably they want to make sure that any of these changes don't adversely impact their quality of life, and that's a very reasonable expectation. As was mentioned by the neighbors, the applicant and the neighbors have demonstrated a desire to and have engaged in constructive dialogue throughout this process, raised the concerns, some of which you heard in the neighbor's statement. And I would add, as was mentioned, that because a number of these neighbors actually live just over the line in Ward 4, that Councilor Charest has been involved throughout this process, and I thank him very much for his active involvement. Since the hearing was initially continued, we've had multiple meetings, calls, emails, and the concerns really broke down into 4 categories. The first was Metro Bowl cars, patron cars being parked on Chestnut Street Extension, Coolidge Street, and Franklin Street. And the actions, some of which have already been taken, and it was mentioned, is that signage and other means are being used to encourage patrons to park in the Metro Bowl lot itself in their new supplemental lot at 55 Foster Street that includes somewhere in the vicinity of 48 new spaces. And again, that sign is Mr. Leo said he was going to get that up, and he did that very rapidly. It's up now, and it's going to be illuminated soon. He's also encouraged his employees to park up on Chestnut Street Extension, which is kind of a pseudo-municipal lot, let's call it, for lack of a better term. And what this will do is put employee cars up there rather than Metro Bowl patron cars up there that are, and the employees have been instructed to be sensitive to the neighbors' concerns about, kind of quietly coming and going. The city also, I've reached out to DPS about some steps that I think we can take to encourage some of those cars that might otherwise park up there to park on street, on Foster Street, and also to do a little bit more regular maintenance on that what I'll refer again to as the pseudo-municipal lot on Chestnut Street Extension. The second concern was the potential for disruptive patron behavior leaving Metro Bowl premises. So these are things like litter, elevated noise, car doors slamming, people hanging out, any traffic going through later at night. It's already been implemented on the part of Metro Bowl that they're going to have a manager walk through the lot at the evening, particularly at the times that the leagues disperse, just to kind of keep an eye on it, which is great. There was some concern that neighbors had raised that in the past when they've raised issues that they didn't necessarily make it to the ownership. So now the on-duty manager is been instructed to report any issues or complaints to the owner so that they can take more rapid action in resolving that. And they've also, and I've seen this with my own eyes, and other neighbors have seen it as well, they've instituted walking around picking up trash in not just their own parking lot, but in their additional lot that they've established at 55 Foster Street. I saw them doing it just yesterday, in fact, and was very pleased. They've also, as Attorney Kelty mentioned, they've actually reduced their bowling capacity by 8 lanes under this reconfiguration. So that actually, although there'll be an offset from the number of patrons in the restaurant, it reduces their bowling capacity by somewhere around 15%. Both Councilor Charis and I have also talked to the police about keeping an eye on that lot at key times, and he has confirmed to both of us that that's actually already been implemented. So just having a more regular police presence in the vicinity at key times I believe, give some comfort to the neighbors in this situation. And then the third issue was the potential for any of this potential disruptive behavior to happen later at night as a result of the adding of entertainment. So really what's going on here is that at Metro Bowl now operates, their current hours are Sunday through Thursday till 11 p.m. and Friday and Saturday till midnight. Generally, they have, and they don't have any real intention of going beyond that, although they can. As Attorney Kelty mentioned, they have a liquor license that allows them to operate later. Their current business model doesn't really drive them to do that, so their intent is to operate roughly those same hours. So the entertainment license will stipulate those hours, and that'll really be the only condition of the license that I will request, and that's hours of non-live entertainment will be 11 a.m. to midnight Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to midnight, and that's, again, Thursday is typically going to be because of their normal operating hours, that'll typically be till 11. and then live entertainment Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 8 p.m. to midnight. There was also another issue that came up about the smoking area outside. That one has proven to be a little vexing. We thought that there might be some easy answers there, but due to some physical limitations of the building and the exterior layout, there really hasn't been an easy solution determined on that yet, but we're working on it. I know Councilor Charis has a creative idea that we're going to potentially pursue, but again, that's a bit outside the purview of the entertainment license, so we'll kind of deal with that as a separate matter. So again, I'm very happy to say that there's been a lot of cooperation here between this business owner and the neighbors. And I plan to support this application with the hours stipulated. And with that, Mr. President, I'd open it up to other councilors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Fellow councilors, Councilor Gould, Councilor Manning Martin next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend Councilor McGinn and Councilor Charis for helping mediate what, was a concern, not a difficult situation, but it just shows that with some diligence and some hard work, you can get things accomplished. I also want to commend the neighbors and Mr. Leo for being amendable to conversation that helped mediate this. Mr. Leo continues to be a strong Peabody business person, and I thank you, Mr. Leo, for that. And the neighbors, thank you very much for your concerns, and I'm sure that Mr. Leo will stay on top of everything. Thank you.
So Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So through you to Council McGinn, do you have a list of restrictions, Council McGinn?
Just the through you to Councilor Manning Martin, just the hours that I stipulated, which is commonly stipulated in entertainment license. So there are no these other matters related to parking and so forth are not subject to any condition. They're just issues that the management has committed to working on and has already shown some significant progress in that regard.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that then. The Metro Bowl has been a staple in the community for 50 years, and what I was somewhat concerned about, but I'm more relieved now to hear that is your response, is that I was concerned that because the applicant came to request 2 performers, just that's it, just 2 live performers, that it was an airing of grievances that were going to be, the permit was going to be contingent upon, should it get the recommendation of the ward council. So I'm glad that it's not tied to that. So my other, because this is really kind of a simple request to get an entertainment license for two performers, given that in the area it is, as you've already said, downtown, and that we've the Black Box Theater and things like that we're bringing downtown. So that would be a concern for me if these issues were more than just being noted as something that the neighborhood wished that the business would work towards rectifying, irrespective of issuing the entertainment license. So I guess it sounds as though these issues have been ongoing, because I've never seen any police reports. Have the neighbors, they utilized things that are available to them prior to the application for 2 performers for the entertainment license? I'm not familiar that there was an issue down there. I've never heard any complaints down there. So I'm just wondering why at this point it took for all these issues to come out, the smoking, the parking. Is there residential parking, resident parking only on Chestnut? Or what are these issues that appear to have been ongoing but haven't really been addressed or brought to light in other mechanisms prior to this application? I'm curious.
Well, I think that probably some do fall into that category, Councilor Manning Martin. I would say that this has been a healthy process in terms of probably clearing the air on some of that, and setting the groundwork for a more constructive relationship going forward. I think that as you mentioned, we are trying to encourage things downtown, but we also want to encourage downtown to be a very desirable place to live. Ultimately, some of these folks that are in walking distance of this place will hopefully be some of Mr. Leo and other businesses' best customers. That's part of what we're striving for here. So we do want to make sure that wherever there's an opportunity to make sure that constructive dialogue can take place and resolve these issues, that it does. But I guess to the simple answer to your question is I think that although we've used this as a mechanism to hopefully clear the air on some of that, it's not baked into the conditions of the permit.
Thank you very much. And if folks have not gone down to Metro Bowl to check out the renovations, I highly recommend it. If you haven't been in yet, it's a whole new, has a whole new look, and it's clean, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the downtown and everything that we're working towards. So if folks at home haven't had a chance to check it out, they should check it out and go.
Thanks for the plug.
Go for some. Go bowl a few strings.
Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate the opportunity, certainly to speak about Mr. Leo and the Metro Bowl, and how much I'm in favor of supporting not only their continued operation, but how they're enhancing their operation. I was, as a kid, brought up in Ward 2, and was a regular patron of the Metro Bowl. It was most kids in the area, that's where we went on a Saturday.
Snowstorms. Snowstorms.
And that's, yeah. We never got to skip school, though, yeah, Mr. Leo. That was made sure. When they put in a billiard parlor, we learned to play pool there. And I can tell you that for probably 10 of the last 15 years of my dad's life, he went faithfully every day at noontime down to play pool with Johnny Marco, and the two of them entertained throngs of people with trick shots and everything else. And it were really probably some of the most enjoyable days of his existence after my mom had passed. And I've probably been to 3 or 4 dozen birthday parties down there, between my own kids and friends of my kids, always being there. And it's so nice to see a business advance with the times. It just not, we know it's not the same anymore. People don't just go to bowl, but they do go to bowl and be entertained, and to be able to have other forms of entertainment and make a night of it. And I think he's making a great step towards the next generation of candlepin bowlers, which, by the way, for those who don't know, there aren't many candlepin bowling alleys beyond the East Coast, because it's very much an East Coast sport. There's maybe one in the Central. You can find one maybe in Chicago somewhere, but that's it. It's a sport that really has been brought up here and is really kind of restricted here, and it's a treasure we should look to keep in this city, and I think something like this will help keep that treasure here. The only question I have for Mr. Leo is, do you still have the bowling pin and bowling ball costume for the parade?
We do, actually. Gavin's standing up in front of our restaurant right now.
I think I'd love to see that go down the street again, because that used to be one of the highlights of the parade, right up front, with the bowling pin and the ball coming down the street. But I am 100% in support, and I appreciate you making the investment in the city and in your facility. And I hope my grandchildren get the pleasure of bowling at Metro Bowl. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Gravel. Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to close the public hearing.
You've heard the motion. All in favor and opposed to vote?
Counselor,
Thank you, Mr.
on New Year's Eve? Okay.
Move to approve the application for Metro Bowl, Inc., 63 Foster Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license to allow for television and digital, internet music, and live entertainment, specifically karaoke, DJ, and live music limited to a maximum of 2 performers and 1 amplifier at said 63 Foster Street, Peabody, Mass. Hours of non-live entertainment, Sunday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 12 a.m., hours of live entertainment Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 8 p.m. to midnight, and New Year's Eve to midnight, noting that all Sunday licenses are to be obtained from the mayor's office. So moved.
You've heard the motion. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilors Manning Martin,
Yes.
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Yes.
Gould, McGinn,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. Reports of committees. We had 2 scheduled committee meetings this evening. The first one, the Public Services Committee, scheduled will be, was postponed, will happen at a later date. The next subcommittee meeting was the Ad Hoc Committee on Medical Marijuana. During that meeting tonight, we had a lengthy discussion, starting off with the mayor and the city councilor, the city solicitor. The city solicitor went over some of the intricacies of getting a medical marijuana permit, both on a local and a state level. The council had the opportunity to address, council to address and ask questions. We closed the hearing, and we're going to continue it at a later point in time. There's some discussion regarding the letters of non-opposition, also the zoning area, and those are the issues that also we got in the criteria for giving out a letter of non-opposition. So everything is still open, and those discussions will be continuing. Thank you. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilman Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have 2 that I'd like to make on behalf of Council Sinowitz, who's out of town, I think on business. One is to request the Department of Public Works to install a crosswalk at 71 Lake Street. So moved.
You've heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? To vote?
Thank you. And the second one is to fix, on behalf of Council Sinowitz, to fix the sidewalk at 17 Samoset Road. So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? To vote?
No further motions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Garabedian.
No motions, Mr. President.
Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things. One, I'd like to make a motion. This has been a great week, really, with starting with the International Festival and the number of people that attended, and just outstanding. And then to roll into the week with to get the witness. The city received 2 electric cars on behalf of Lion War Motor Group, as well as the PEF to get a grant for $100,000 from the Lion War Motor Group. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask that a letter of thanks be sent from the council to Warren Waugh at Lion War Motor Group, expressing our gratitude for his continued investment in the city of Peabody, and particularly for those 2 electric police cars, as well as the $100,000 donation that he made to the PEF. So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor, any opposed, a vote?
Second thing is as a point of information for our city councils and anybody who's listening out there. Our YMCA in Peabody is a member of the Metro North YMCA, and it services 7 communities with facilities. And we are having a fundraiser to raise funds specifically for children and family who cannot afford to attend the YMCA, with the belief that any child who wants to attend a program, a camp, or anything like that should be able to go regardless of their economic situation. And a lot of people don't know, but the YMCA does provide financial assistance to over 1,000 children in the Metro North region. And the only way we do that is through the donations of people like ourselves who care about kids getting what they deserve. And we're having a great fundraiser on September 23rd, where if you participate, not only will you be able to dress up like you're going away on a tour or travel of the world, it's called the Where in the World event, but you'll also be able to get a taste of international cuisine from over 22 restaurants now. You'll be able to participate in live and silent auctions with some unbelievable gifts and prizes. And you'll be automatically entered into a raffle that will provide one lucky winner with a trip for 2 anywhere in the world, airfare, hotel, and meal for dinner. It's probably the wildest raffle thought process we've ever had in terms of incenting people to come and participate, but I think it's going to go over great. So it is the night of the 23rd at the Peabody Terigian YMCA, the Family YMCA, on Linfield Street, and the time is from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock. There are still seats available. We can only accommodate 250 due to the size of the facility, but I guarantee you'll be quite surprised as they convert a YMCA into a travel destination itself as you're greeted at the door, which is the boarding area, and you walk into a venue which has been converted by the hard work of a lot of people to look like you're flying in an airplane with the sky above you and the stars shining. So please come, get online to get a ticket, and the website is an easy one to remember. It's Metro North YMCA raffle.org. Metro North YMCA raffle.org, and you can pick your tickets there. So thank you for indulging me for that one commercial. And last, I wanted to, because it has really been a kind of an exceptional couple of weeks, I had the opportunity to be at the ribbon cutting for the MassWorks grant down at the Monument, and had a chance with other councilors to talk with Jay Ash, who is the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. Also the primary person responsible for getting the couple of $1.5 million grants that were needed to convert the downtown. After that event, as we were standing there, Tom Walsh, who's always doing 2 duties, one as the city councilor at large and the other as a state rep, was petitioning for transportation, because we all know that transportation to the train station is a critical component of the success of the downtown if we were to bring more residents in, particularly young professionals who need to get to work. We've discussed things like the train stop, and Secretary Ash was quite intrigued with the idea of a trolley and said that would be quite a doable endeavor. He said, there's only so much money to go around, but he might be able to find $1 million. The city's part for that would be that we would have to find the engineering study money to do that. So pause for a thought. We then, during the same week, got a notification from the Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce that in their discussions with multiple groups around North America, they happened to bump into a group at a different venue for it's a group that does trial museums. Instead of going all in on a children's museum, what they do is they rent exhibits for a period of 6 months. You provide the facility and they train the staff, and it's a great way to float a trial balloon on the prospect of having a museum in maybe the church that we purchased down on Washington Street. We all, had thought that was a pretty good idea to have a children's museum. This is a way to experiment with that without, going in with millions of dollars. The cost of that is somewhere around, between $25,000 and $50,000 for a 6-month period. And then there were several other things that came up in terms of the Main Streets group with, trying to get the business owners together from downtown, and the property owners in particular, so that we could discuss with them specifically what their plans are for their buildings. And the proposal was to sponsor a breakfast. All these are leading to a motion that I'd like to make, but I wanted you to understand the thought process behind the motion. Some of these items that come up, timing is everything in life, and you have to be able to react to, when a Secretary Ash says, if you can fund this, I can get you further to fund that. You have to have the ability to spin a little bit and move. And our process tends to be a little bit labored in that regard. So I had an idea, and I know we are not an appropriating source. We are, a mayor proposes and we dispose. So we can't appropriate funds on our own. But I would like to request the mayor to think about and submit to us his recommendations for the development of an economic vitality fund for the downtown and surrounding areas, so that we would have a ready source of available funds to take advantage of opportunities that might come our way as it pertains to supporting the revitalization of the downtown. I would be curious as to what his recommendation would be in terms of the level of funding required. I'm sure it'd be reasonable, but the idea would be that we would be able to fund that out of the unrestricted reserve. So with that, I'm going to make the motion to ask the mayor to consider the establishment of an economic vitality fund for the downtown, and to present to us what his recommendations would be in terms of funding that. If he decides he doesn't want to do it, then it goes no further, but at least I'd like to give him the opportunity to think about it and come back to us. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Councilor Gravel. Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you very much for indulging me the time. Appreciate it.
Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to have Public Services repair the sidewalk at 30 Dexter Street, which has been uplifted by a tree.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? A vote.
Motion to have Public Services supply to the City Council an update on the Coolidge Street water plant construction and a potential reopening date.
Council, I believe that's already, motion was made by Councilman Manning Martin, and that's in the subcommittee to be addressed at the next DPS subcommittee meeting. Is that correct, Councilman Manning?
Yes, it was scheduled for this evening, but the mayor asked that it be rescheduled. So that is on the agenda, Councilor Turco.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that same note, can I add to your subcommittee, if you don't mind, Councilor Manning, I'd also like to get an update on the water usage so far through MWRA. As in regards to cost to the taxpayers. And if we could send that motion to Public Service as well as Mike Gingrich, I'd like to see what the difference from last year at this time and the current year financial difference is between those two numbers.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
And lastly, move under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 7A regarding ComTank.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
And for those that don't know, ComTank actually goes Monday before the ZBA here at the Wigan Auditorium, 7 p.m., and they filed an administrative appeal on the building commissioner's previous letter stating that they were illegally storing the tanks on the property under our zoning, and they've put forth the appeal. That being said, I was at the property today, and they have removed a substantial amount of the outside tanks, so we're starting to see some progress, and I'm hoping prior to Monday's meeting that these tanks have been removed from the property. But either way, I will be there, and if any residents are interested, 7 p.m. Monday night for that ZBA meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Turco. Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to have a light pole installed at 5 Esquire Circle. It's already been approved by the light plant, but the formality is it has to be a vote of the council. So moved.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
I'd like to make a motion with co-motion with Councilor Turco to have a caution children playing sign mounted on the corner of Holden and Lynch Street. So moved.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
And also, I'd like to make a motion, co-motion with Councilor Turco. There is a sign, of a handicapped person sign, that is, for some reason, is mounted almost 10 feet high on the corner of Mansfield and Holden, and I'd like to see if we can bring that sign down to its proper eye level. So moved.
You've heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
No further motion.
Thank you, Council Gould. Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. On suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8G and set up a public hearing. So moved.
You've heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
No further motions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple quick motions. The first one would be to request our facilities manager to report to the council on the status and condition of our city-owned buildings, particularly the fire stations. And on that motion, Mr. President, we focus a lot on schools, and last year we got a report and some requests on some maintenance improvements in the schools, but I couldn't help but think the other day when I was driving down Lowell Street, and we have the oldest working fire station in the nation, right in downtown. It's a historic building, and if you look at the windows, I don't know the condition of the windows themselves, but we could at least use some paint, and I'm just a little bit concerned that maybe some of the buildings are being neglected, and I'd like to know what type of schedule we have for each of the buildings, what needs to be upgraded, and what the ongoing maintenance schedule is. So moved.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, to vote?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a second motion, and that is to request the Department of Public Services to advise the City Council as to the status of catch basin cleanings and the usage frequency of the city's vacuum truck. And on that motion, if you ride around the city, there are several catch basins that seem to be near or at capacity that need to be obviously serviced. But many years ago, this city invested in a truck that was supposed to be able to improve the maintenance of a lot of these catch basins in a program to do that. And I'm a little bit concerned that we may not be doing that as much as we should. And I'd like to know about the investment of that vehicle that seems to get little use and seems to be in the shop more than it's out on the street. So I'd just like to hear from them what we're doing. You know, that also has an impact on our flood mitigation program. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping up with that.
So moved.
Council Walsh, just to add to that, I think they call it the Vector truck, and if I could just add to your motion, I'd like to see if there's actually a schedule, because I do go out and I have, just recently a resident asked me, is there any schedule for that truck to go across the city? So I have those same concerns. So maybe the frequent use of it, or more importantly, is there a schedule for the truck to go through the catch basins in the neighborhoods? Thank you, Council Walsh.
Thank you.
For the motion, all in favor, any opposed, a vote?
That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Chirist.
Thank you. A couple of motions. I'd like to ask the police department to go out with a recommendation on no parking on Wheatland Ave on the bottom of the street, and have the street's very narrow, cars are coming up, and a recommendation on where a no parking sign should be placed in the length of it.
For the motion, all in favor, any opposed, a vote?
I would like to ask our state representative to seek a sign that's going southerly on 128 from Lowell Street, an accelerated sign. Now, when you're coming up on the ramp, there's a yield sign, but it always backs up on the Lowell Street, down the ramp on the Lowell Street. And if there was a sign that the state uses to show the accelerated lane, so cars don't just stop, wait, thinking they have to stop there, but the yield sign isn't working. If we can ask our state representative to look into that.
For the motion, all in favor, any opposed, a vote?
And I'd like to accept 7B.
For the motion,
I'm going to accept suspension of rules, 7B, and approve.
yes, you've heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote?
And under suspension of rules, 10A, motion to adopt.
You've heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, a vote?
And I'd just like to thank the Peabody Housing Authority and their works of working on Irving Street pathway. They did a wall, a fence, cleaned up the area. The city has gone in there and makes it more accessible for the school children to go from neighborhood to neighborhood and people walking. So I just want to say thank you to the Housing Authority for their efforts there. So move.
Thank you, Council Charas.
Mr. President?
Council Walsh.
Sorry. On the ordinance, do we need a roll call on that? We don't. Okay. Okay. All set. Thank you.
Thank you. Just have a couple of quick comments. I know for the people out there, there's still some streets that are being paved in the city. And just to give people, this is a question I'm sure many of you get asked, is once a street has been milled, it's about 7 to 10 business days before they go back and pave it. So if people wonder, that is what the timetable is. So after a street has been milled, 7 to 10 days. And following up on that, many people have commented on the repaving of Lowell Street area by the high school, and the striping is coming, just to let the public know that DPS will be out there striping that shortly. And lastly, we have the Higgins Middle School. It's in year 2. I don't have the exact date. I did hear through the grapevine that they're going to have another open house. I believe it's in October. I'm sure you'll be hearing shortly. I believe it's the weekend of the 21st or 22nd. But I encourage all citizens who didn't get the opportunity to go down and see that school last year to get out and see the magnificent facility that we have very many reasons to be proud of. On that note, can I get a motion to receive item 8A and send it to Legal Affairs? You've heard the motion by Council Gould. All in favor and opposed, so vote. 8B.
Motion to receive.
For the motion received, all in favor, vote.
8C, motion to receive and set up a special permit application.
You've heard the motion by Council Gould. All in favor and opposed, so vote.
8D, move to refer to finance.
You've heard the motion by Councilor Manning Martin. All in favor and opposed, so vote.
8E, motion to receive.
For the motion by Council Gould. All in favor and opposed, so vote. And 8. Motion received by Council Gould. All in favor and opposed, so vote. And 9A.
Move to approve.
For the motion, all in favor and opposed, so vote. And 9B,
Use of the Wigan Auditorium, PBD Recreation Parks and Forestry for November 3rd. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
you heard the motion, all in favor, opposed to vote. And 9C, take us home, Councilor Lavelle.
Taxi cab license, Sunshine Taxi, 153 Newbury Street, license 36. Sunshine Taxi, 153 Newbury Street, license 39. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
You've heard the motion, all in favor, opposed to vote. And Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you. Just a quick remark on Councilor Charest's motion to receive 7B. For the folks at home, it was the mention of an appointment of Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn as PBD's representative to the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District. I just wanted to commend the mayor for that appointment. I think Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn is going to do a phenomenal job at that table representing our needs, the needs of the students and the needs of the city. And I also want to thank Jim Liakis for, she's replacing him, so I wanted to thank him for his service as well. And we all know Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn is very busy, so this really is quite a commitment for her to take that on. So I want to thank her for that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Excuse me, we have one comment from City Clerk.
Council, just on the plans on your desk for the public hearings scheduled for September 28th to do with Jubilee Drive. It's just that they're so big, we figured that we'd give it to you tonight.
And can I have a motion to adjourn? Councilman Yin, thank you.